Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the discussion on the daily quiz for the 9th of May 2022. Before we begin, a small update on the Target Prelims 2022 program. Tomorrow, that is the 10th of May, join us live for the second part of the discussion on the important government schemes by Harshmeet sir. If you want to be notified when we go live, you can set a reminder for the same. The link for the video you can find in the description box below. Moving on to the first question for the day. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to the National Clean Air Program? There are three statements given here. Statement 1, it aims to achieve a 40 to 60% reduction in particulate matter concentrations by 2022 with 2017 as the base year. Statement 2 reads, it aims to meet prescribed annual average ambient air quality standards across the country based on the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. Statement 3. Cities exceeding national standards for 5 consecutive years are directed to prepare and implement city action plans for improvement in air quality. You can go through the 4 options. Now, what is the context to this question? Recently, addressing the valedictory session at the Conference on Environmental Diversity and Environmental Jurisprudence, the serving Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Shri Bhupendra Yadav, stressed on the need to strike a balance between development on one side and pollution-free environment on the other. The minister, in his address, noted some of the major initiatives taken by the government to ensure a pollution-free environment. And one of the main schemes he mentioned or talked about was the National Clean Air Program. Now coming back to the question. Observe, the National Clean Air Program was initiated in the year 2019. Please note, it is not 40 to 60% reduction in particulate matter that it seeks, but it is 20 to 30%. Also, it seeks to achieve this reduction not by 2022, but by 2024. So this statement stands wrong. Moving to the second statement. Observe, it indeed aims to meet ambient air quality standards as per the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. Now, NAQS sets out air pollution limits for air pollutants such as particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, lead, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, ground level ozone, and ammonia. And among particulate matter, it sets limit for PM10 and PM2.5. The second statement is correct. Moving on to the third statement. It says that only those cities which exceed these standards set by the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for over 5 consecutive years are required to implement city action plans to improve air quality. Yes, this statement is correct. Now let's understand this statement better. Cities which exceed the standard set are termed as non-attainment cities. Currently, we have 132 cities. So what are non-attainment cities? These are cities which exceed the national standards set by the NAAQS for 5 consecutive years, and these cities have to prepare a city action plan to improve its air quality. Now since the statement 1 is wrong, you are left only with option C. Now an important question is an aspirant required to remember facts and figures? Answer to that statement is yes, especially when it comes to important government initiatives such as the National Clean Air Program, which is aimed to address the air pollution in India. Yes, for such important schemes or programs, it is absolutely necessary to remember the facts and figures. Moving on to the second question. Consider the following statements with respect to thalassemia. Statement number 1, it is a blood disorder involving lower than normal amounts of white blood cells in the body. Second statement, it is caused by bacterial infections of the bone marrow tissue which produces white blood cells. Which of the above statements is or are incorrect? Please note, the question asks for incorrect statements. The options, you can just go through them. Now, what is the context? The Union Tribal Affairs Minister, Shri Arjun Munda, addressing an webinar titled Challenges in Thalassemia 2022, stressed on the need for nationwide awareness campaign to tackle thalassemia. Now let's understand thalassemia. Thalassemia is indeed a blood disorder. So this part is correct. But as against what is stated in the question, it is not characterized by lower than normal amounts of white blood cells. It is characterized by lower than normal amounts of RBCs or hemoglobin. Please note, hemoglobin is the protein which is contained in the RBCs, which are oxygen carriers. This statement stands wrong. Moving on to the second statement. It is caused by bacterial infections of the bone marrow tissue which produces white blood cells. Please note, we have already discussed that it is not about white blood cells. So by that understanding, you can always eliminate the statement 2 as well. But for better understanding, let's understand thalassemia better. See, thalassemia is basically a hereditary blood disorder. It is not a communicable disease. So it is not caused by bacterial infection. Clear? Being a hereditary blood disorder, the treatment to it involves either blood transfusion or donor stem cell transplants. Since the question asks for incorrect statements, the correct answer to this question would be option C. Moving to the third question. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to vote value of members of the Electoral College for President of India? The first question statement, the values of each vote by a member of parliament is fixed, while the vote value of each member of legislative assembly differs from state to state. The second question statement reads, the value of a vote of a member of parliament for the election of the president is determined by dividing the total value of votes of all MLAs of the states divided by the total number of elected members of the parliament. This is a very big statement. For better understanding, you can divide it into smaller parts. Now let us understand the context for the question. This is an article from the Hindu edition for today. Please note, the presidential polls are scheduled to be held in July 2022. Moving on to the question. Please note, the President of India is indirectly elected by an electoral college. Now, let's understand who constitute this electoral college. The electoral college consists of elected members of parliaments of India. It also consists of elected members of legislative assemblies of states and also those union territories which have an elected assembly. So, after having understood what constitutes or who constitute an electoral college for the election of President of India, now let's understand the process. Please note, each member of this electoral college has a value associated with his or her vote. Now, how do you calculate the value of this vote? We'll be using these two formulas. Please note, the value of an MLA vote is given by total population of the state or union territory divided by the total number of elected members of the state legislative assembly into 1000. So it becomes very evident from this formula that the value of each MLA vote will differ from state to state. How can you say that? Because the population of each state varies. So the value of a MLA vote varies from state to state is correct. Now let's evaluate the first part of this statement. Is the value of each vote of a member of parliament fixed? The answer is yes. Why? Look at this second equation. Value of an MP vote is given by the sum of vote value of elected members of all the legislative assemblies divided by the sum of elected members of both the houses of parliament. Since the sum of elected members of both the houses of parliament is fixed, as well as the sum of vote value of elected members of all the legislative assembly is fixed, the value of an MP vote is fixed. So this part is also correct. So overall, the statement 1 is correct. Now let's look at the second question statement. Observe, the second question statement is nothing but an expression of the second equation itself. So this is right. Since both the statements are correct, the answer to this question is option C, both 1 and 2. Please note that the number and values of votes are based on population as measured in the 1971 census. Equation are provided in the provisions of Article 55 Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. Now let us try and understand what the Hindu article talks about. It notes that the likely value of vote of a member of parliament in the upcoming presidential polls is likely to be 700. Now, based on the two equations which we discussed earlier, and if we had to consider the 1971 population, then the actual value should have been 708. Now, this coming down to 700 is because of the absence of the legislative assembly in Jammu and Kashmir. Please note, this is not the first time that the value of the vote of a member of parliament would reduce from 708. In 1974, since the Gujarat Assembly was dissolved and it was not constituted before the presidential election in 1974 also had the value of vote of a member of MP being less than 708. Moving on to the fourth question of the day. Which of the following pairs of Indus Valley Civilization sites and the corresponding present day state location is or are correctly matched? Look at the three pairs: Rakigari, Haryana; Banawali, Punjab; Kalibangan, Rajasthan. Please have a look at the options. Now, what is the context for this question? This article from the Hindu notes that skeletons found in the Rakigari excavation site having been sent for analysis. What analysis? DNA analysis. Coming back to the question. Now, let's understand each of these Indus Valley civilization sites in brief. Please note, Rakigari is one of the largest Harappan sites in the Indian subcontinent. It is situated on the Gagar-Hakra river plain. It is situated in the Hisar district of Haryana. So this is correct. In the previous union budget, the central government proposed to develop Rakigari as an iconic site. Also note, Rakigari represented the mature phase of the Indus Valley civilization, that is the period between 2600 to 1900 BCE. Banawali, the fourth town of Harappan period, located on the banks of the dried up Saraswati river, is also located in Haryana and not Punjab. Banawali is known for its excavations of gold and copper beads as well as bangles made of shells. Kalibangan is an Indus Valley civilization state located in the present state of Rajasthan. It is also located on the banks of the Gagar Hakra river system. Kalibangan is best known for fire altars as well as world's earliest plowed fields. So from this discussion, it becomes clear that the answer to this question would be option C. Moving on to the last question of the day. This is a question from the 2019 UPSC Prelims GS paper 1. The question reads, with reference to land reforms in independent India, which one of the following statements is correct? The four options being option A, the sealing laws were aimed at family holdings and not individual holdings. Option B, the major aim of land reforms was providing agricultural land to all the landless. Option C, it resulted in cultivation of cash crops as a predominant form of cultivation. And option D, land reforms permitted no exemptions to the ceiling limits. Let's first understand what was land reforms. Land reforms in India basically had three major steps. The first one being abolition of intermediaries. The second one being fixations of ceilings on land holdings. And the third objective was redistribution of surplus land among the landless people. Now let's look at the options. The ceiling laws were aimed at family holdings and not individual holdings. Now what were ceiling laws? Land ceiling involved fixing maximum size of land holding that an individual or family can hold. So it was not just applicable to a family but also to individuals. So this statement is wrong. Now the second statement. From our discussion on land reforms, we know that one of the primary aims of the land reforms was to ensure redistribution of surplus land among the landless people. So the statement B is nothing but a manifestation of the same. This is correct. So we have arrived at the answer. Now let's discuss the fact for the day. Cyclone Hasani. What is the context? The Indian Meteorological Department has warned that Cyclone Hasani, which developed over southeast regions of Bay of Bengal, is likely to intensify into a severe cyclone. So in this context, let us understand tropical cyclones originating in the Bay of Bengal region and Cyclone Hasani in particular. Now what are cyclones? Cyclones are large systems of winds circulating about a center of low atmospheric pressure. In the northern hemisphere, these inward moving wind systems rotate in the counterclockwise direction, whereas in the southern hemisphere they rotate in the clockwise direction. Tropical cyclones in the Bay of Bengal regions occur in two distinct periods of an year. The first one being March to June and the second one being October to December. The peak season for tropical cyclones in the Bay of Bengal region is May and November. The cyclone Hasani is likely to move in the northwest direction, reach the coast of Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. Cyclone Hasani is unlikely to make landfall as it might take a turn in the northeastern direction. That is all for today. Thank you for being with us.